All right, welcome to the 40th edition of Before the Battle. My name is Nick Baldwin, and joining me, as always, is the man behind BestFightPicks.com and the host of Half the Battle. Daniel Levy joins me here on Before the Battle once again. How's it going, Daniel?
It's going amazing, dude. I mean, obviously, UFC 201 was in my hometown. It was one of the best nights of my life. And now we're going to talk Yair Rodriguez versus Bruce Leroy, so I'm pumped, man.
For sure. And Paolo, of course, writer, go Paolo, writer for Sportsnet.ca and Vendetta fighter. Coming in the nick of time, Paolo. How's it going?
Yeah, coming in clutch. How's it going, guys? Let's talk some fights. We got a great fight card ahead of us.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's a card where I was telling Daniel off air a second ago. It's a fight night. It's a freebie. It's a card that not a whole lot of people are talking about. And like I will admit, and most people will agree with me, that it's not the most stacked card out there. But I think it's going to end up being like UFC 201 and be a sleeper card in the sense that not the biggest names, but will end up being a fun night of fights with a lot of great performances and great fights. Very quickly, I want to mention last week's card. Tyron Woodley knocks out Robbie Lawler to become the new welterweight champion. Now, I wish Biggie was here because he would be all over us on this one. We're all eating crow for this result. I knew it was possible, but I didn't see it happening. Woodley is the new welterweight champion. Great performance. It just took one hand. That was the fight. That was the fight deciding factor right there. Daniel, how surprised were you that Woodley is our champion now? And just give me your thoughts on the actual fight.
I mean, I'd be more surprised if he won in like a back-and-forth war where both of them had to show their hearts and get dirty in there. But I'm not surprised that, it was one punch that put away Lawler. It's just with Woodley, he's most dangerous in that first round, man. So that's when he caught Lawler. If Lawler was going to lose this fight, it was going to be via first-round knockout. I seriously doubt Woodley would have got dirty and grimy with him, and because Woodley's not that kind of guy. But you know what? He went out there and knocked out Robbie, so props to him. And it's funny because right after the fight, if you watch on the pay-per-view, Biggie Rhodes points out to someone in the crowd. The person he was pointing to was me because we had a little I told you so moment because he told me Woodley was going to do it. So, man, props to them.
Yes, definitely. And congrats to Biggie. He's not here, but hopefully he's listening or will be listening after. And so congrats to Tyron Woodley. He's the new welterweight champion. Congrats to everyone over at Rufus Sports and even ATT and all of his training partners, of course. Paulo, anything else you want to add about what Daniel's added there? Tyron Woodley, the new champion, knocked out Robbie Lawler very early in the first round. Give me your thoughts on that fight.
Yeah, no, I'm not at all too surprised. I mean, there's a reason I didn't bet that fight is because to me it was almost like a coin toss. Either Tyron Woodley was going to get Lawler out of there early or he's going to fade late and Lawler's going to beat him up. And just happened to pick on the wrong side, so glad I didn't bet that. But yeah, no, congrats to Tyron Woodley. I'm curious what guys like Rory McDonald think. That's going to be motivating. I know there's this rumor that GSP is going to come back and fight him now. And there's even a betting line on it, so that's interesting.
Yes, for sure. Now, anyways, I'll quickly say my thoughts. It was a great knockout win for Woodley. We didn't my questions going in weren't answered though. What will Woodley's cardio be like? It did answer that there really was no ring rust. It didn't look like that. Anyways, I would have liked it to go on longer, just in the sense to see really if Woodley's game has evolved since we last saw him in January of 2015. So it's really still hard to say, and we'll find out in his next fight whether that's against Wonderboy, which I should be, but it also could be like everyone knows at this point, it could be against Nick Diaz or of course former champion Georges St. Pierre, which are the two fights Woodley and his camp and team are calling for. But anyways, let's get into this weekend's UFC Fight Night 92. Takes place from Salt Lake City, Utah on Saturday. Like I said, top to bottom, it's a pretty fun card. We'll start out with the curtain jerker first fight of the night on Fight Pass. It's a heavyweight clash between newcomer Chase Sherman and Justin Ledette. Daniel, what do you know about both guys, and how do you see this one playing out?
It's tough to predict, man, because both of them are making their debuts. Sherman's got more experience. You know what I like about Ledet, though? He's kind of like a heavyweight Diaz brother. He's tall, lanky, throws crisp, straight punches, then he'll taunt you, he'll throw his hands up in the air, be like, "What's up, motherfucker?" And then he'll finish you via submission, which is really cool. But with Sherman, at least he's tasted defeat before and come back, so he knows what it's like to get that first L. I'll go with Chase Sherman here, via experience.
Paolo, do you agree? Are you going with the vanilla gorilla, or do you think Justin Ledet can pull it off?
I think Justin Ledet's going to pull it off. How confident am I? Not that confident. I barely know anything about these guys, but from the little footage I've been able to see of them, I like Ledet's swagger better, and I think Chase Sherman has fought some really questionable fights out there, let's just say that. So I'm just going to go with a guy I think is more legit out of just pure, whatever, guess, intuition, Justin Ledet.
I'm going to go with Chase Sherman here. I don't know too much about either guy. I just have this feeling, kind of a coin toss fight, and it's heavyweight. And one also point, I believe Ledet is undersized. Daniel, you probably have done a bit more research on Justin Ledet than I have. Is that weight on UFC.com accurate? Like, is he a really light heavyweight, or is that completely inaccurate?
No, it's true, man. I mean, he could fight at 205, but a fight's a fight. Anything can happen. He's got size for the weight class in terms of height and reach. But in terms of weight, yes, he could drop to 205, but maybe he feels more comfortable at heavyweight. You know what I mean? Lately, we've seen a lot of guys go up a weight class because they feel more comfortable there. So this could be one of those instances, but, I mean, we got to tune in, man. They've never fought in the UFC before.
Yes, that is very true, and like you said there, of course, two UFC newcomers that are heavyweights, especially very tough fight to call. Sherman, although he defeated Jack May in his last fight in Titan, even though that was an injury, so it's hard to take anything away from that. But anyways, I'm going to go Chase Sherman, but don't be surprised if it goes either way, just because it's two heavyweight newcomers, and just about anything really can happen. Let's talk about arguably one of the best fights on the card. It's the Fight Pass feature prelim fight. We got number 5 featherweight Cub Swanson taking on number 14 ranked Tatsuya the Crusher Kawajiri. Paulo, I'll go to you first. Do you like Killer Cub in this fight, or the fairly sizable underdog?
You know what? It's a matter of question of, is Tatsuya Kawajiri a better grinder than Hakaran Diaz? Because Hakaran Diaz couldn't grind out Cub Swanson. I think he won one round in that fight, but Cub had that fight in the bag, man. And the thing about Kawajiri is, yeah, he's the crusher. You know what he's going to do? He's going to go in there, use his little bulky wrestling, and get on top of you, maybe try to sub you or finish you. And Cub is vulnerable on the ground if it goes to the ground. So we'll see. But I think Cub's going to win 2 out of 3 rounds. I think he's going to be able to stay on it, keep it on his feet long enough for him to win. But, man, minus 400, I think that's what his price is. Man, that's crazy.
Yes, it's definitely kind of crazy odds. I feel that he should be a large underdog or a favorite, but that's quite big considering he's only coming off one win before those really dominant losses to Edgar and Holloway. But Daniel, let's get your pick. Are you going with, or are you taking a risky pick here and picking the Crusher, or do you think Cub Swanson continues his winning ways to 2 fights in a row?
You know, I don't think this fight goes the distance, because with Kawajiri, the biggest knock on him has always been his cardio. But now he has to show that cardio and altitude, which is going to be really bad news. And if you watch Cub Swanson's fight with Hakaran Diaz, Hakaran was supposed to do what Kawajiri is going to do, except Hakaran tried to stand and bang with Cub Swanson, which is the dumbest game plan I've ever seen in my life. But with Kawajiri, he's going to be trying to dive on the legs. He's going to be relentless. He's going to try to grind him out. So he might win the first round. The issue is, like I said, the altitude plus the jet lag flying over from Japan. He's going to gas out. So either he taps out Cub Swanson in the first or second round, or he gets knocked out in the first or second round. So I think this fight's going under 2.5 rounds, and my pick will be Cub Swanson.
I agree with your pick of Cub Swanson, but I do actually think it goes to the judges' scorecards. It very could be the under. I do think that's a really good play in the sense if it's plus money, definitely go for the under. It's to me it's basically 50-50. Cub could finish this early, even Kawajiri could, but I would be very surprised if that happens. But more than likely, Cub Swanson could knock him out in the first round and a half, first 2 rounds, whatever, and that's the fight because he has very, very crisp striking and a big advantage on the feet, and I just don't think Kawajiri's chin will be able to hold up either. On the other hand, Cub Swanson, he had a really good performance in his last fight, in his return to the octagon against Hakron Diaz, Brazilian. But he didn't look for that knockout from the opening bell. He played it a bit safe, which isn't a knock on him. That's a very good thing. That's what he needed to do to solidify that victory for him, which was a very important win coming off the layoff, coming off back-to-back losses. But I think it's going to be a similar fight in the sense that Kawajiri wants to take him down, won't be able to. Cub Swanson just lighting him up on the feet en route to a dominant 30-27 unanimous decision win. But don't be surprised if Swanson knocks him out like Daniel believes he will, or believes that's a very good chance of happening. But my pick, though, is Cub Swanson by unanimous decision. Now, next up, opening up the Fox Sports 1 televised prelims, we got a very fun featherweight matchup between Teruto Yashibo Ishihara taking on Horacio Gutierrez, the Punisher. Daniel, are you going with Teru here or the Punisher?
It's a good fight again because, if you watch Horacio Gutierrez's UFC debut, he got grinded out all 3 rounds. The good news is Teruto is not going to try to grind him out. He's going to try to stand and bang with him. And also, I bet the under 1.5 here. I'll tell you why. Not only was it plus money, but if you look at Teruto Ishihara's wins, 75% of them are under 1.5 rounds. So you give me a 75% on that, and I'll take that risk and pick him under 1.5 rounds.
Fair enough. Paolo, do you agree? Are you picking Teruto Ishihara to win this fight? How do you think he wins it? If not, how do you think the Punisher pulls off the upset?
You know what? Teruto can win this any way he wants to win this, pretty much. I don't want to underestimate the Punisher so much because this guy's a warrior dude. He goes in there and he brawls. He's got some pretty serious leg kicks. The thing is, he lost his last fight by wrestling, and he didn't look good at all, man. Once he got taken down to the ground, pretty much couldn't do anything. And the thing about Teru is this guy can actually wrestle, but I think he's gonna outstrike him and finish him at some point, maybe in the middle second round.
Yeah, I actually think this could end up being competitive because, as you guys both mentioned there, Horacio Gutierrez lost his UFC debut in the tough finale by getting outgrinded by Enrique Barzola, and that's not something that's going to happen. Although Ishihara, now he's training at the official Team Alpha Male headquarters, and I think that's a really, really big move. And if we don't see any improvements from him in this fight, I think definitely in the near future. But I do think we will see improvements. I think his grappling will be better. I think his striking will be tighter. I think his all-around game will be better. He's training at one of the best camps out there, absolutely. So, and he's been there for a while for this entire camp. So that's going to be interesting. But like I said, he's a very wild fighter. So Gutierrez does have a chance to make this an interesting fight, make it competitive. He's a very tough fighter. So my pick is Teruto Ishihara by knockout in the first round. But don't be surprised if it does go into the later rounds and we see Ishihara perhaps tire out a little bit like he did in his UFC debut, but you have to guns to the head. My pick is Teru by first round knockout. Now next up we have a heavyweight matchup between Victor Pesta and Marcin Tybura. Paulo, who do you like in this matchup?
You know what? I think I'm gonna go with Tybura here because he's got a bit more. See, the funny thing is Tybura has more experience in general, but Pesta has the more UFC experience. It might be one of those fights that could go really long if it doesn't end quickly, and it's gonna be kind of boring and sloppy at some point. But I think it's gonna end in the first round, and I don't know, man. I'm just flipping I'm just rolling a coin here mentally. I'll go with Pesta by a knockout. Let's go with a knee, some random thing like a knee.
These flip a coin matchups, I swear to God, 99% of the time are low-level heavyweight matchups. And low-level heavyweight matchups are so tough to call because, one, it's either going to finish in 14 seconds, like we saw with Hamilton finishing Grabowski this past weekend, or it's going to go all 15 minutes to no one's and no one was expecting it, like we saw with Omi Lanechuk grinding out Alexi. So it's an interesting fight in that regard. Daniel, who is your pick? Are you going with the poll here or Victor Pesta?
You know I got to go with the poll here, man. I got Marcin Tybura all day. I think that Victor Pesta doesn't have any heart. He's kind of like a Kawajiri with no heart. You know what I mean? He's a relentless grinder. But the problem here will be the altitude. The altitude is going to be a big deal. It's going to gas him out. And then when you don't have heart or cardio, you know, what's going to happen then? And you look at Tybura's UFC debut. We all, you know, you can excuse a UFC debut loss, right? But in that third round, he came on strong against Tim Johnson. Tim Johnson's no slouch. Tim Johnson comes to fight. Tim Johnson is experienced. Now with Pesta, yeah, he does have the UFC experience, but like I said, man, he doesn't have that heart. Tybura's back is up against the wall. He needs this victory, and he'll get it.
Yeah, this is an interesting fight just because I predict these low-level heavyweight matchups so poorly, but I'm going to agree with you guys here. I am picking Marcin Tybura here. I don't think this will end early. I do think it goes to the judges, and I do think it'll be perhaps a bit of a snoozer. Victor Pesta looked all right back in January of 2015 when he fought Konstantin Irokin, but there's a reason Irokin is no longer in the UFC, and that says something considering we are talking about the heavyweight division. I'm just not that impressed with Victor Pesta, but at the same time, I wasn't that impressed with Tybura. Perhaps I was just expecting too much out of him in his UFC debut. Maybe he suffered from octagon jitters. That's definitely possible, but I'm going to agree. Marcin Tybura, I do think he grinds out a unanimous decision victory here, but because I say that, probably bet on the under 20 seconds because that'll probably cash because, like I said, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to low-level heavyweight matchups. Let's talk about David Teymur taking on Jason Novelli, a newcomer to the UFC. It's a lightweight fight. Daniel, talked about both guys, two fairly unfamiliar fighters. What do you know about them? What do you know about their games, and who do you think takes home the victory?
Jason Novelli's a lot older than I thought. I didn't realize he was getting up there in his 30s, but you know what? Props to him. He finally made it to the UFC. With David Teymur, he's that guy that was on The Ultimate Fighter that told Cody Garbrandt to change his underwear because he's going to fuck him. Remember that? And,
no, I don't watch The Ultimate Fighter, but I'll take your word on it.
Yeah. You had that plan, didn't you? But, I mean, the thing with this fight, man, Jason Novelli follows me on Twitter. I got to go with him here.
That's funny. Great. I shouldn't expect any more of a breakdown of this fight. Paolo, give me some stupid reason why you think you're going to win this. Or, no, you're going to win this fight, but who's going to win this fight?
I'm going to go with David Teymur here, man. The interesting thing about him, though, is he was in that fight against that other guy. I forgot his name. Martin Svensson, which is probably like he didn't do anything in that whole fight except flop to the ground, and you know eventually he caught him with an uppercut and then just put him away, and then he started bawling his eyes out like he had accomplished his dream. You know what I mean? So I'm saying, was that it for him? Was that the peak of whatever he wanted to do in his career, or is this guy motivated, wants to become a champion and stuff? So we'll see, man. With Novelli, this guy's very experienced, man. So even though he's the newcomer, he's the vet here. So I'm gonna go with Novelli.
I thought you said you picked Teymur at the beginning.
Did I say I picked Teymur?
Yeah,
oh,
you
shit.
did, but
Yeah, Novelli.
Yeah, I'm going to complete the hat trick here once again. I'm not liking the show because I'm going with you guys. Maybe my picks won't be under 500 this week. We'll see. Jason Novelli, I do think, wins this fight. Coming off a win, or actually a draw against Yosdinas Cedino, one that many people thought should have gone Jason Novelli's way, and I was one of those people. I watched that fight live, and Novelli looked all right. He didn't look fantastic against a UFC veteran that lost to Cody Fister and then got cut. I expected maybe a bit more from him, especially as a new and current UFC fighter. But it's still an interesting matchup. David Timur looked really good in his UFC debut back in February in London. He knocked out his opponent in the second round, I believe, but the competition level just isn't there for him. I'm not saying that Novelli is much higher, but I think his experience will come into play. I think he'll be able to win this fight, perhaps by submission, but look for a submission or for him to win a decision. Next up, headlining the FS1 prelims, we got a very interesting welterweight matchup. This is one of my toughest picks on the card, in my opinion. Court McGee, the Crusher, taking on Dominic, non-stop, action-packed Steele. Paolo, who do you like in this matchup?
You know what? I kind of wanted to bet on Dominic Steele here because this guy, he can get a little bit wild in there, throw some bows and stuff like that, and I think he can hit pretty hard. The thing about Court McGee, though, is this guy is used to taking a lot of punishment, but that didn't work out quite so well for him against Santiago Ponzinibbio, but Ponzinibbio is another dude as we'll get to later. So I'm really not sure. I think Steele could maybe come on strong in the first. He's probably going to hurt McGee, but he's going to survive like he does, and then he's going to outgrind him and win the decision. But, you know, I could totally flip and say Steele's just going to knock him out in the first round. Who knows?
Daniel, the Crusher or non-stop, action-packed, Dominic Steele, who do you think wins this welterweight matchup?
Wait, who'd you pick, Paolo? Court McGee or Dom Steele?
McGee.
Okay. Here's my thing with this fight, man. If this was anywhere but Utah, I'd pick Dom Steele. But the fact that it's in Utah with that elevation and Court McGee lives there, it's tough to pick against him. But at the same time, Court McGee is on his way out. Make no mistake about it. This is, this might be his last fight. This might be one of his last 3 fights. It's coming. But the thing with Steele, man, I really want to see him get the victory because I don't want to see him get cut. I like the guy a lot. Very, very cool guy. And he comes to fight. I mean, UFC debut, went out on his shield against Zach Cummins. Then the next fight against the Maestro, Dong Young Kim, he did that infamous slam. And then after that, he had a fight of the night with Hot Chocolate, which was an unbelievable fight. So, man, I just wish this wasn't in Utah because I know that pace that Dom pushes, it's going to gas him out. But with that said, all the knee surgeries, everything that Court McGee's gone through, I'll take the underdog and pick Dom T. Steele.
Yeah, this is a really close fight, and didn't I see the odds correctly on this fight? That isn't McGee like a 2-to-1 favorite or 2.5 to 1 favorite? Is that correct, or is it closer to even?
Yeah, he's like minus 210 right now.
Yeah, I find that crazy. I think I feel this should be like even odds. This seems it like just looking at the matchup, it feels like an even odds sort of fight. I've been flipping back and forth. I could definitely see a path to victory for Dominic Steele here. I could definitely see him knocking Court McGee out because McGee he doesn't have many knockout losses under his belt. But once you get that first couple or even the first one, then you start picking them up more and more. And Steele hits really hard for the welterweight division. McGee is going to be interesting to see how his chin holds up, but I'm going to go with Court McGee here. I think he'll be able to grind this one out. I think he'll have to dig deep in this fight. But that's something Court McGee can do. He has a lot of heart. He's very gritty, very tough. Dominic Steele also, his chin is not good, although he did take some shots against Danny Roberts. So perhaps it's not as bad as some people think. Luckily, he's not fighting a knockout artist by any means. But I still think he'll be able to get. I do think he'll get taken down just throughout the fight enough. I think Court McGee picks up a close 29-28 decision victory on all 3 judges' scorecards. Now, opening up the Fox Sports 1 main card, the 6-fight main card, we have a women's strawweight matchup between Marina Iron Lady Moroz taking on newcomer Daniel Dynamite Taylor. Daniel, what do you know about the newcomer Daniel Taylor, and how do you think she matches up against number 8 ranked strawweight Marina Moroz?
What I know about her is that she's got the exact same record as Marina Moroz, except her only loss is via knockout. She's way smaller than Moroz, doesn't have the UFC experience that Moroz has, She likes to dart in and out, kind of like a karate fighter. I think this is a bad matchup for her, and I got to go with the UFC experience, so I'll pick Marina Moroz. And it's funny because I've been picking the underdogs in the high-profile women's bouts. This isn't a high-profile women's bout, so I got to go with the favorite.
Interesting. Paolo, do you also agree with Daniel here? Marina Moroz, do you think she gets this win and extends her winning streak to, I believe, 2 in a row? Or do you think Dynamite finds success in her debut?
Yeah, the thing about Danielle Taylor is I watched that fight where she got knocked out, and I just guessed that the reason why she probably got knocked out was because she was getting too aggressive and ran into a punch and got knocked out, and that's exactly how she got knocked out in that fight. This girl comes to brawl, man. This girl comes to fight, but the thing is, she's small, man. She's like an atomweight fighter fighting at strawweight. She might be the smallest fighter in the UFC now. And yeah, I think Marina Moroz is going to win. I don't think she's going to be able to knock her out. Moroz is pretty tough, I think. Maybe she'll get hurt, she'll get dropped, but she'll finish the fight, and she'll win 2 out of 3 rounds.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think Marina Moroz will win this fight. I don't know a whole lot about the newcomer, Danielle Taylor, but I mean, it probably just comes down to experience. Unless Danielle Taylor is some animal and I just don't know it, I think it'll be a relatively easy path to victory for Iron Lady, who, although their records are exactly the same with 7-1, 7 wins and 1 loss, Moroz has that UFC experience. Has been close to a title shot in the sense that she out of nowhere submitted Joanne Calderwood, who at the time was you could argue was one win away from a title shot. So I'm going to go Marina Moroz. I think she's a better fighter, but I mean it could go either way, just because Danielle Taylor is quite unknown. Next up, we got Trevor Smith taking on Joseph Gigliotti. Daniel, another newcomer. It's a trend on this card. A fight that, I mean, like I said, Gigliotti is a newcomer. What do you know about Capo, and how do you think he matches up against Trevor Hot Sauce Smith?
You know, I got to go with Trevor Smith here. I think that not only does Gigliotti train out of the worst gym in MMA, Power MMA, and I always look to bet against them in the UFC. I should have taken that, that principle and applied it to other leagues, because as you saw, that kid Darren Caldwell as a minus 1,500 favorite. Like, what was he doing minus 1,500? And his shots, his takedowns were awful, man. And then he loses to Joe Manglo. Man, I'm still kicking myself in the ass for not playing Joe Manglo. And shout out to my dude, the MMA genius, who did play Joe Manglo in that spot. So listen, I always fade Power MMA. It doesn't matter who trains there, what fight it is, it doesn't matter. But the thing with Trevor Smith, here's what we got to avoid if we're betting on Trevor Smith. We cannot get knocked out in the first minute. If we avoid that first minute blitz, we're going to grind this guy out and welcome him to the UFC. So I got Trevor Smith.
All right, Paulo, do you agree? Do you think Trevor Smith pulls it off, or do you think newcomer Joe Gigliotti gets the job done?
Yeah, you're not going to hear much dissension from me. I think Daniel broke it down perfectly there. Trevor Smith is going to, outlast Gigliotti, and he's going to win the final 2 rounds.
My pick is Joe Gigliotti. I don't know too much. I don't have really reasoning behind it. Just watch, and maybe you'll see, but probably not. Trevor Smith, just not too impressive in my opinion. Although, he has the UFC experience, so that could definitely come into play. So we'll see what happens. It's kind of a fight where it's like, I just don't care about it that much. It probably could go either way. But my pick is Joe Gigliotti. And next up is a fight that I actually really, really like. It's a welterweight matchup between Santiago Ponzinibbio and Zach Cummings. Daniel, who do you like in this matchup?
This is another really good fight because with Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's really evolved his style, and he's got these very crisp laser beam of hands that he throws. They're crisp right down the middle. But the issue with him is not only his striking defense, which, as you saw in the McGee fight, prior to him knocking out McGee, I heard some people say that he did clean work on McGee, but they don't remember that he was getting tagged hard in that fight. Excuse me, my dogs are barking. But, if you can get past that first round with Santiago Ponzinibbio, it shouldn't be an issue. So if I'm picking Cummins, okay, Santiago's got better hands than us. All right, I can live with that. But you know what? This is MMA. We can take him down. We can kick him. We can put him in the clinch. So there's so many avenues to win. Our durability, our cardio. So I got to go with Zach Cummings for that underdog pick here. Just don't get knocked out in the first round.
Very interesting. Paulo, do you agree? Do you like Zach Cummings to pull off the upset, or do you think Ponzinibbio can get the job done?
I'm going to pick Santiago Ponzinibbio here. I think he's going to do more damage to Zach Cummings and beat him up enough over the course of 3 rounds to get like a judge's decision. But I think Cummings is like, he's tough. This guy is really tough, man. I underestimated this guy at some point, but I mean, he went in there against Gunny, and he went in there against Gunny, and he gave him a run for his money until, he eventually got out jiu-jitsu'd like we expected him to be. He knocked out Dominic Steele in like what was that, like 40 seconds or something, which is crazy. So yeah, Zach Cummings, this guy, he might not look like the best fighter, but this guy can fight. But with that said, still gotta go with Ponzinibbio.
Yeah, my pick is Santiago Ponzinibbio here. I like Zach Cummings as a fighter. Some people don't care for him because he's a grinding type of fighter, but I find he showed off his knockout power, but in a couple fights back, but I think Santiago Ponzinibbio will just absolutely outclass him on the feet. I think there will be a big difference there. Zach Cummings could grind him out. Perhaps Ponzinibbio will tire a little bit, but I don't think that'll be an issue. I think Santiago Ponzinibbio will be able to get the job done early. I think he knocks out Zach Cummings on the feet. He's looked super good as of late, very precise and crisp striking. I think that comes into play for this fight. I think he knocks out the American in the first round. Now next up, we got a very intriguing middleweight matchup between Talis Ladies and Chris Camozzi. Daniel, are you going with the Brazilian here or the American?
I got to go with Team USA here, man. I mean, look, if this was in Brazil, then maybe I'd pick Ladies there. And if this was a couple of years back, for sure I'd pick Ladies because, Ladies has this style that historically has given Camozzi problems. But you look at their career trajectories, if you put it like this, and Ladies was right here at one point, and Camozzi was right here, well, now it's slowly shifted, and Camozzi's become the better fighter. I know Ladies went, 5 rounds with the current champ, Bisping. His last fight, he got absolutely destroyed by Mousasi. But, man, he hasn't won since pre-USADA. Not saying anything. Just that's a fact. It is what it is. That is a fact. And with Camozzi, ever since this level playing field has started, the guy's been racking up victories, man. I mean, it's cool to see guys that are all natural getting in there and winning fights. Not that Talis isn't. I got no idea. But what I'm trying to say here is he was already known for gassing out late. So now he's coming over here with the altitude. As long as he doesn't submit Camozzi in the first round, Camozzi should grind this out and make Talis really tired and then take over. So I got Camozzi as the dog pick here. His pace will be too much.
Very interesting. Paulo, do you agree once again? Do you think Chris Camozzi will pull off the upset yet again, or do you think Talis Ladies gets back into the winning column?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when we were breaking down that London card and how I like, did you pick Ladies in that fight, Nick, against Mousasi?
No.
No, you picked Mousasi, right?
Yeah.
So it was James and Daniel then, and I'm like, come on, man. I mean, we went from picking him against Gegard Mousasi to picking Camozzi against him, and that just goes to show just how far he's falling. His stock has fallen, man. I mean, a lot of people even thought he beat Bisping, the current middleweight champion.
Yeah, very quickly. Like, I don't feel that fall is deserved though, because a loss to Mousasi really isn't that big. Mousasi is a top contender.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, with that said, I do think that his cardio is going to be an issue in this fight, so it's hard for me to pick him, even though, in my opinion, he's like the more talented fighter, the better all-around fighter here. But, I think Camozzi could totally outlast him here and get an upset victory here. Now, I got to look at it a bit more first to see if I want to lay money on Camozzi, but, if you're putting money on him, I think this is dog or pass, because I can't trust his cardio, man.
Yeah, I mean, his cardio is an issue, but my pick is Talis Ladies all day. I don't see this being that really razor thin of a fight. I mean, Chris Camozzi, he looks good. I said it on the MMA circus a couple of days back, or actually today. It was released today on Bloody Elbow. But anyways, I basically said that Chris Camozzi beats guys that are on their way out. Guys like Tom Watson, guys like Joe Riggs, and his. Although he knocks out Joe Riggs with a knee, it's a great performance on paper, but you look at who he's fighting, and it's just not that impressive to me anyways. People can feel different about Chris Camozzi, but there is a reason he got cut. He's just not that good against top competition. I'm not saying Talas Ladies is any Jacare, and yes, Jacare will beat him for a fourth time if they ever fight, but Talas Ladies is still, I feel, a top 10 guy. And Chris Camozzi is definitely not. So I think Talas Ladies is actually better everywhere. I don't think his cardio would be as big of an issue here as some people are thinking. Like Paolo just here mentioned, of course. I think Talas Ladies has a really good chance of finishing Chris Camozzi. It's an interesting matchup because Chris Camozzi does have the wrestling ability, but I feel Talas Ladies is better on the feet and the better. The grappler actually on the mat. I think he has the better submissions, and I think he'll be able to pull this one off inside the distance. Now next up, we got a featherweight matchup. It's the co-main event of the evening. We got number 8 ranked featherweight Dennis the Menace Bermudez taking on Hani Jason. Paulo, I'll start with you. Who do you like in this featherweight matchup, Dennis Bermudez or Hani Jason?
Yeah, this fight, I know, this is one of those fights where I'm thinking, well, both these guys are hardly in boring fights because, they can get pretty aggressive at times. So I'm just thinking maybe this fight makes it to decision. That's if Dennis Bermudez fights smart and uses his wrestling and is able to sort of control Hani Jason there. I mean, if he stands and brawls with him like he can be tempted to do, I don't know, maybe Jason can catch him with something there. I mean, Bermudez doesn't have the best chin. That's what in like all of his fights, he gets hurt, he gets rocked, but he wins most of them anyway, and he's only lost to like top competition. So I think he's still gonna pull this off here. He's gonna get rocked at some point. Maybe Hani Jason almost submits him at one point, but he'll pull through and win the fight here by decision.
And Daniel, do you agree? Do you think Dennis Bermudez will continue his winning streak to what I want to believe is 2 in a row, or do you think Hani Jason returns successfully?
I think Hani Jason's either going to knock out or submit Dennis Bermudez. I know Dennis Bermudez gets dropped every single fight. And look, we can excuse the knockdowns to a guy like Jeremy Stevens because, Hani also got knocked out by Jeremy Stevens. No shame in that. What about Matt Grice, Tommy Hayden? Like, can you explain getting dropped by those guys? Because I can't. And Bermudez gets dropped by those guys. He likes to push the pace, but with this altitude, it's going to be hard to push that pace. He's either going to eat a flying knee or he's going to get caught with a triangle choke. So I got Hani Jason here with the finish inside the distance. His back's up against the wall, and he needs the win.
I'm picking Dennis Bermudez here, and I'm fairly confident. Hani Jason is coming off a failed drug test for diuretic, so it's not like he tested positive for anabolic steroids or HGH or like a hardcore steroid, but he still took something on the banned substance list. I was gonna say USADA, but of course it wasn't USADA at the time. Nevertheless, it's hard to trust a guy coming off a layoff and coming off a failed drug test suspension. So just for that reason, alone, I feel you got to. Yes.
Hold on. Let's get this straight real quick. Hani Jason didn't pop for steroids. He popped for a diuretic, which he used to cut weight. So I mean, it's not like he's coming in.
I know, but what I'm saying, he still popped for something. It was on the banned substance list, so he can say it was for weight cutting, and you can. It's true. I mean, coming off any sort of banned failed drug test, I'm looking to fade you, no matter what it is. If it's a banned substance, then it's a banned substance.
Tainted supplements. Save YOLO. Free YOLO Romero. Doesn't even speak English, man. Come on.
No. He speaks.
He speaks a little bit.
We'll just call it language YOLO Romero. But anyways, back to this fight. I think Daniel, you can minus the drug test. and I still think Dennis Bermudez win this fight. I think Honey Jason can be at his best, and I think Bermudez would still win this fight. I just think Bermudez is better everywhere. Honey Jason does have that puncher's chance because everyone does. He is a good grappler. He could get Bermudez caught in a submission, and Bermudez does get caught quite often. His last 2 losses, he kind of just got finished out of nowhere. So that is a possibility, but that was against 2 of the top names in the featherweight division, Ricardo Lamas and Jeremy Stevens. So Honey Jason is far from Bermudez's level. So unless I don't know something about Dennis, and he's going to show up way flat-footed and way just worse than normal, I don't see Honey Jason winning this fight unless it's some sort of come-from-behind finish, or if he just goes out and starches him, and it's on the close end of a lucky either tap out or knockout. But I think my pick is Bermudez. I think he wins by decision, but don't be surprised if he pulls off the stoppage. I feel I picked Bermudez to knock out Kawajiri in his last fight. He didn't do that, so I'm not confident in the Menace stopping Honey Jason, but I do think he wins in dominant fashion, whether that's a finish or a dominant decision. Now, next up, you got the main event of the evening. Yair Rodriguez taking on Alex Caceres, and some people will say, I don't know either guy. Why is this the main event when you have Cub Swanson and Bermudez both on the card lower end? But if you don't know Yair Rodriguez, you will after this weekend, win or lose. The guy comes to fight. Daniel, are you going with the number 13th ranked featherweight here, El Pantera, or do you think Bruce Leroy pulls off the upset?
Well, first of all, whoever says that Yair should not be headlining a card, please come to Atlanta and say that to me so I can slap you, because this guy is the future of the sport. I mean, who else? Did you see that flying kick he did to Andre Fili? Who else does shit like that in the UFC? He's unbelievable. And I'm not one of these, hype train fucking bandwagon kind of guys. I played Yair Rodriguez at plus 200 against Charles Rosa. I've known about this guy a very long time. I've been high on him for a very long time. And if you look at his resume, look who he's beat. Charles Rosa in his second ever UFC fight in Mexico with the altitude. He beat Dan Hooker. He beat Andre Fili. And he's not just beating these guys. He's owning these guys. Now he's got Bruce Leroy, who is on a career resurgence. Leroy, or Caceres, has never looked this good. I was at his fight with Cole Miller at UFC 199 in LA, and that was the best Bruce Leroy we've ever seen. I know eventually Yair is going to take that first setback. I mean, it's bound to happen. Everyone takes that first UFC loss. Doesn't matter who you are. No one is exempt. But on Saturday night, Yair is going to shine. You guys are going to see the future.
Paolo, are you going with the sizable favorite here, Yair Rodriguez, the tough Latin American one winner, or do you think Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres, wins this fight?
Yo, let me just say that I'm really happy that a guy, the winner, or someone from tough Latin America is headlining a UFC fight. I know this exotic tough shows. A lot of people like to make fun of them. Oh, he's coming from that show. Let's fade him. There's really no real competition there, or something like that. Come on. Like, I'm probably one of 10 guys who actually watch that series. And I'm just happy that everyone finally knows how good Yair Rodriguez is, and that he's fulfilling his potential. And I think he's gonna outstrike Alex Caceres here, but Caceres is no slouch, man. I think moving back to 145 has been really good for him. I think he's just been draining himself too much at 135. I mean, he got starched by Cisco, and he's been the only guy Cisco's beaten in 10 years. So yeah, I think Rodriguez is gonna beat Caceres here. I think it's by finish at some point, maybe the third round or so. I mean, I want to say decision, but the last time I didn't think he would be able to finish Fili either. But with Rodriguez, you don't know what this guy's going to pull next, man.
Yeah, I was not in the Yair Rodriguez bandwagon until his last fight, because he went to the decision against Rosa. It was a split. Then he beat Dan Hooker. He looked decent in both those fights, but he didn't show me anything that said this guy's going to be top 5 in the next 2 years. But the flying kick, head kick, or knockout win over Andre Fili, and Fili is no slouch. He's a decent fighter. That was really a huge statement for me. I looked at that and figured if you can do that to a guy like Andre Fili, who's not a top featherweight, but he's a gritty guy, he's a good fighter, then I think like Daniel said, you're probably the future of the featherweight division. I truly believe at this point that Yair Rodriguez, unless something happens, like as long as he keeps doing what he's been doing for his UFC career so far, I do think Yair Rodriguez, big things are in store for him in the not so distant future. A lot of people are picking Caceres in this fight. A lot of people think this will be his first setback and his first UFC loss. Because of course he does have one loss outside of the UFC, but I'm not one of those. I do think Yair Rodriguez wins this fight. Caceres has been looking good on the feet, and just in general, he's been looking really good as of late. Decision, Cole Miller, or was it a late? I think decision, but he beat Cole Miller. Looked really, really good in that fight. I expected Cole Miller to go in there and probably even stop Caceres, but Caceres showed off many improvements, especially on the feet, on the ground, even as well. The move up to featherweight has been really, really good for him. Like Paolo said there, he's been draining himself when he was going down to bantamweight, and he just wasn't looking that good. He was a 500 fighter, so to speak. He was on the verge of getting cut. Then he changed things up, went to featherweight, and has looked good ever since. His chin was a bit iffy at bantamweight, but I don't think the chin isn't too bad. Like, moving up, his chin is going to get better. But anyone can get knocked out by Yair Rodriguez, so I think that's what's going to happen. I think Yair Rodriguez will knock out Alex Caceres with a very, very slick, either some sort of like a punch or a kick. I think he can win this however he wants on the feet. So that's what I'm going with. Yair Rodriguez by either first or second round knockout, and I think he will receive a big step up in competition after this fight. And one last thing, it's really cool that this is the main event because not a whole lot of people know either guy, but like I said earlier, I think everyone will know both guys after this fight. Now, guys, anything else you guys want to add about this card? I think we went through every fight. Let me just double check. Yes, we went through every fight. Anything else you guys want to add, or shall we share our DraftKings teams and things like that?
I mean, Yair Rodriguez is fighting. What else is there to say, man? You know, when you see the kinds of kicks that this guy does and just his athleticism, it's the first time we really see a guy using all those Taekwondo tools that he has at his disposal. You know, with Anthony Showtime Pettis, you know, he'd do the occasional spin kick or the occasional jump off the cage kick. With Yair, he throws those spins like they're jabs. He does it every other strike. So, and he's been working his wrestling with Izzy. So, yeah, that's why you saw him do a blast double against Andre Fili in his last fight at UFC 197. So look out for this kid Yair. Win or lose, this kid is special.
Yes, fair enough. Paulo, anything else you want to add? If not, go ahead and share your DraftKings team to our audience.
Okay, so here on DraftKings, well, these prices are kind of weird today. Like, there's a couple of favorites out here, like Santiago Ponzinibbio, and he's like an underdog price. I'm starting to wonder, that's kind of fishy. But last time they did that, there were a lot of upsets that happened. So what this only means is that the peeps at DK think this card is kind of weird. There might be a lot of upsets here. Let's make some underdogs who have a higher chance of finishing as the favorites, and that's what they did. Now, with that said, I got Honey Jason here. I think he could probably finish the fight. He's really cheap. Chris Camozzi is like really cheap right now. So if you think it's almost a 50-50 fight with Dallas Latest in him, then take him. Ponzinibbio is surprisingly underdog at 9,400. And then just pick whoever favorite is. I don't know who's probably gonna win. Let's go with Kawajiri and Teruto here. Although Teruto being the highest priced fighter on the card, I never did not see that coming.
Yes, I tend to agree about that. But my team does involve Teruto Ishihara. My team, I have two, so I'll share both. My first team is Yair Rodriguez to knock out Alex Caceres. I have Teruto Ishihara to knock out his opponent Gutierrez. I have Cub Swanson to dominate Tatsuya Kawajiri and possibly knock him out. I have Santiago Ponzinibbio to knock out Zach Cummings, and I have one guy that I'm not picking, but I think it was really, really cheap. One of the cheapest, which is surprising, because like I said, I feel this is a coin toss type of fight. Dominic Steele. I'm picking Court McGee to grind out Steele, but I think with his power, he looked good against Danny Roberts. I think he's a really good chance of winning. So he is one of my underdog picks for that DraftKings team. The others are all favorites, but Ponzinibbio, like Paolo said there, it is almost like an underdog on DraftKings. My other one consists of three of the newcomers that I'm fingers crossed that they're going to win. I have Chase Sherman, I have Gigliotti, I have Jason Novelli, Talis Ladies, and Santiago Ponzinibbio. So the only one I have two fighters the same is Ponzinibbio, and with the price, and I'm pretty confident he'll win this fight in devastating fashion. So we'll see what happens. But Daniel, go ahead, share your bets. Anything else you want to add before we plug our stuff and call it a night?
Yeah, you can find my bets at www.bestfightpicks.com. They're all up there.
You want to share what they are, though, before? So, although maybe you share a couple, and then you leave the listeners have to go to your website afterwards.
Yeah, they can get them on the website. So, bestfightpicks.com. Just go there, click on it, and you'll see all my plays right there.
Okay, fair enough. Paolo, there we go. That is a show before the battle. UFC Salt Lake City in the books. It looks like it's going to be a decent card. Not a card that's receiving too much marketing and whatnot and hype, but I think it will end up being a good night of fights. Looking at the main card of prelims, I see a lot of finishes happening and a few fun back and forth fights as well. Now, Daniel, thank you guys as always, of course, for doing the show. Daniel, let the audience know where they can find your website, although you've already plugged that twice, so I don't know. But podcast, anything else you got going on in the world of mixed martial arts, now is your time.
Yeah, man. My podcast, Half the Battle. It's a lot of fun, and you can find it on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. I highly recommend you check it out. You know what the deal is. And bestfightpicks.com, at bestfightpicks on Twitter. Half the Battle is the podcast. Check it out. Good talking to y'all.
Connor McEwen is calling you out right now in the YouTube chat. Perhaps
what's he got to say?
He says, "I want to fight Daniel." So clear and concise.
Just tell him good luck with that one, man. Many have tried, and tell him to bring anyone he wants, just not anyone he wants back.
Yes, I would like to see that. He is only 17 years old, though, so there is the...
Man. Yo, tell him to wait until he's old enough, man. Shit, I can't be beating up minors.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would go too well when you're at the police station trying to give an explanation. But anyways, Paolo, let the people know where they can find you on social media, your writing, anything else you got going on in the world of MMA.
Yep. At GoPaoloMMA, that's my official account on Twitter. I've got a couple of articles out for DraftKings and bets for Vendetta Fighter. And I'm going to be doing something for Sportsnet for the upcoming big card. That's UFC 202. We're really excited about that one. But, of course, we're excited about this one. And I was going to say that actually the reason why they're not putting a lot of marketing behind Salt Lake City is because, 202 is around the corner. But that said, now's the time for the fighters to really shine through, because I feel that's when they really come through, when they feel ignored.
Look at UFC Fight Night, what was it, 91, the Mayday versus Lineker card. Right after UFC 200, no one knew about it, and it ended up being a really good card, and UFC 201. But anyways, you guys can find me on Twitter at NickUFC. You can find my writing at bloodyelbow.com. I've been doing a lot of writing lately. Had a really, really cool interview article out today, actually, on Paul Bradley. It was a really, really eye-opener interview with Paul Bradley, new WSOF fighter, talking all things how he was treated in Bellator. Let's just say it doesn't seem like it was too pretty. So go check that out on Bloody Elbow right now. I had another article out on new UFC fighter Adam Hunter. You can check that out on Bloody Elbow right now as well. Audio interviews. mixing it up, posting some interviews now on the MMANation.com, which is Bloody Elbow's YouTube channel, instead of all of them on my podcast, The MMA Circus. So go check out those interviews right now, youtube.com/MMANation, DOTCOM. I have an interview with Joe Time on the Globe, who of course defeated Darian Caldwell, as Daniel mentioned. Interview with Bellator 160 fighter Henry Corrales, Bubba Jenkins as well on the card. This weekend's UFC Salt Lake City, Jason Novelli. I have the Paul Bradley audio interview and Adam Hunter, Team Alpha Male fighter Adam Corrigan, and UFC Vancouver's Ryan James. My podcast, The MMA Circus, I hosted each and every week with Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence. This week, on today's episode, we had 3 guests. Trudeau Ishihara, who of course fights this weekend. We had UFC welterweight Max Griffin, who debuts against Colby Covington at UFC 202 later this month. And we had Bloody Elbow writer Ian Kidd. We'll also be doing a show. It'll be out on Sunday because there will be no MMA Circus next week. So there you have it. Before the battle, UFC Salt Lake City in the books. Thank you guys for watching, and enjoy the fights.